Today, the United States and Israel are two of the closest allies in the world. They share intelligence. They conduct military exercises together. The U.S. gives Israel billions of dollars in military aid. But here's the surprising part. This alliance was not inevitable. In fact, when Israel was first created in 1948, the United States wasn't even sure it wanted to support the new country. So how did these two nations go from uncertainty to one of the strongest alliances in modern history? And here's the real twist. The relationship between the US and Israel wasn't built in a single moment. It was shaped by wars, politics, Cold War rivalries, and decisions that changed the entire Middle East. Let's start at the beginning, because the story starts before Israel even existed. In the early 1900s, the land that would later become Israel was part of the Ottoman Empire. After World War I, the empire collapsed, and Britain took control of the region under what was called the British Mandate for Palestine. During this time, a growing political movement known as Zionism began pushing for the creation of a Jewish homeland. Many Jews had faced centuries of persecution across Europe. And after the horrors of the Holocaust during World War II, global sympathy for the Jewish people grew dramatically. Millions had been murdered by Nazi Germany. For many survivors, the idea of a Jewish homeland felt not just important, but necessary. Meanwhile, the United States was emerging from World War II as the most powerful country in the world. And American politics began to play a role in the future of the region. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a plan to divide Palestine into two states, one Jewish, one Arab. The Jewish leadership accepted the plan. Arab leaders rejected it. Tensions exploded. And then, in 1948, history changed overnight. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion stood in Tel Aviv and made a historic announcement. The State of Israel officially existed. Just 11 minutes later, the United States became the first country to recognize Israel. The decision came from U.S. President Harry Truman. But here's something many people don't know. Inside the U.S. government, there was intense disagreement about this decision. Some advisors believed recognizing Israel could damage relations with Arab countries. Others argued that supporting Israel was both morally right and politically necessary. Truman ultimately made the call himself, and that single decision laid the foundation for a relationship that would grow stronger over the next decades. But the alliance wasn't fully formed yet, because within hours of Israel declaring independence, war began. Immediately after Israel declared independence, 5 neighboring Arab nations launched a military attack: Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq. Their goal was simple: stop the creation of Israel. But the war didn't end the way they expected. Against overwhelming odds, Israel survived. By the time the war ended in 1949, Israel had actually expanded its territory beyond the original UN plan. For the young nation, it was a defining moment. But the United States still maintained a somewhat cautious relationship. At that time, America was trying to balance its interests across the entire Middle East: oil, regional stability, and the growing threat of the Soviet Union. Which brings us to the next major turning point: the Cold War. Because the US-Israel alliance didn't truly become strong until something unexpected happened. The Soviet Union entered the Middle East. And suddenly, the region became part of the global battle between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. During the 1950s and 1960s, the Middle East became a major arena of Cold War competition. The Soviet Union began supporting several Arab governments with weapons and military advisors. Egypt, Syria, and Iraq all received Soviet backing. This made Washington increasingly concerned, because if the Soviets gained influence across the Middle East, it could threaten global energy supplies and Western interests. Israel, on the other hand, was a democratic country with strong Western ties. Slowly, American policymakers began to see Israel as a potential strategic partner. Then came a war that changed everything. The Six-Day War of 1967. In June 1967, tensions between Israel and its neighbors reached a boiling point. Within 6 days, Israel launched a series of lightning-fast military operations. The results shocked the world. Israel defeated the combined forces of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, and captured huge areas of territory, including the Sinai Peninsula, the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and the Golan Heights. The war demonstrated something important to Washington. Israel was not just surviving in the Middle East, it was becoming a powerful military force. From that point forward, the United States began increasing military and political support. The alliance was growing stronger. But the real cementing of the relationship came just a few years later, during another war. In 1973, Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack against Israel during the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. At first, Israel struggled. The situation was dangerous. And that's when the United States stepped in. The U.S. launched a massive military resupply operation called Operation Nickel Grass. Cargo planes flew thousands of tons of weapons and supplies to Israel. The assistance helped Israel recover and eventually push back the attacking forces. From that moment on, the partnership between the two countries became much deeper. Military cooperation increased, intelligence sharing expanded, and political ties strengthened. But the relationship wasn't only about war. There were also cultural and political connections growing inside the United States. Over time, support for Israel grew among many American political leaders. Several factors played a role: shared democratic values, strategic interests in the Middle East, and strong cultural connections between American and Israeli societies. There was also growing support from various political groups, religious communities, and advocacy organizations in the United States. All of this helped build a powerful political foundation for the alliance. And by the 1980s and 1990s, the partnership had become one of the most significant relationships in global politics. But here's an interesting fact. Despite their close alliance, the United States and Israel don't always agree. And sometimes the disagreements are very public. Here's a quick fun fact. Israel is about the size of New Jersey. It has one of the most technologically advanced militaries in the world. In fact, some Israeli military technologies, like missile defense systems and drone technology, are now used or studied by militaries across the globe. Pretty impressive for a country that small. Today, the United States provides Israel with around $3.8 billion in military aid each year. The two countries cooperate on missile defense systems, cybersecurity, counterterrorism, and advanced military technologies. One famous example is the Iron Dome missile defense system, which was developed with significant U.S. support. The alliance also includes intelligence sharing that helps both countries monitor threats across the Middle East, but the relationship also plays a major role in global geopolitics, especially when it comes to issues involving Iran, regional conflicts, and international diplomacy. So, the alliance between the United States and Israel wasn't created overnight. It evolved through wars, Cold War rivalries, strategic interests, and decades of political decisions. What started as a controversial diplomatic recognition in 1948 has grown into one of the strongest alliances in modern international politics. But the Middle East is constantly changing. The future of this relationship will likely continue to shape the region and the world for decades to come. Because in geopolitics, alliances are never just about friendship. They're about strategy, power, and the balance of the entire world.